the approach to the Olympics is so awesome. The qualification to me is like, it's so fun. Like I have so many friends' stories, like how they do it. So I was very interested in the whole process of the first Olympics ever for our sport. Like, cause I don't know how it works. And it's probably different today than it was year number one. So year number one going into an Olympic season, like what is your quota that they say you need to perform? So you know that you haven't been invited to start a half pipe, so you know that can't be a goal.
Yeah.
So you know slow styles that. What do they give you to say you have to do to guarantee your spot in the United States of America?
So the crazy fucked up part about all this, the first part was you needed to be top 30 in the world in fists, and I didn't do. The U.S. team, the U.S. team was sick back then. We only did like one World Cup a year because it was in the U.S.
Okay.
Like the U.S. team actually cared more about AFP points than chasing fist points, which was so dope at the time. The whole thing of the Olympics is they're saying it's the top 30 best athletes in the world, but it's the top 30 minus fifth from each country. So say there's like the year of the Olympics, the U.S. had 7 of the top ranked skiers in the world. Only 4 of them got to represent themselves.
Yep.
So this actually benefited in my favor a bit because of the other countries who had a lot of athletes. If there's 7 in the top 30 who are American, then they go to rank 33 because that's still 30 people who can represent themselves in the Olympics.
Yep.
I had like no fist points, so that was like goal number 1 was get the fist points, figure that out. So
the U.S. team who focused on AFP points before and only brought their team to one World Cup a year.
It was like maybe 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because that was the thing is I didn't do well in the slope events that were fists.
Yep.
But I was on the U.S. team because of my rankings of the other platform. But for me, it was all super fucked up time in my life. That summer of 2013 when it was all like time to go. My dad got really sick. He was born with a hole in his heart, like a pretty bad heart defect that he wasn't even supposed to make it past 16 with the technology back then. So he had 2 to 3 open heart surgery. I think it was 2 open heart surgeries. I mean, he had a scar all the way down his chest and another one all the way across, like thick scars, like opened up surgeries. And then he was starting to get sick. So in the spring of 2013, when I was really focusing on a lot of this stuff, like getting, like the Olympics are coming up, competing, I had a lot of back and forth, like family scares, where it's like, I'm traveling, but I got to get home tomorrow because my dad's back in the hospital. So my dad ended up getting an LVAD, I believe it's called. So his heart was just getting weak. So they put a pump in it, but it's a very intense, long surgery. And whenever you go under the knife for more than 5 hours, it takes a huge toll on all your organs in your body, just not being alive necessarily. But he had the surgery, and then almost instantly it went downhill. He went into kind of full organ, like multi-organ failure. So that spring and that summer was really spent. I thought it was going to be spent on me practicing skiing as much as possible, getting my head right, figuring out how the hell I'm going to make this first Olympic team and like win X Games, do all this stuff. But instead, I was pretty much at the hospital every day for 3 months. And then comes in, this is where this whole fist thing kind of leads into an issue for me. I needed to go to New Zealand for the first World Cup of the year because I needed to get fist points. This wasn't an Olympic, like a U.S. team qualifying event. It was just to get the points that I needed. And at this point, my dad had been unconscious for about a month, but I still went to the hospital every day. And it was like a really fucked up, hard decision to make. But I was under the impression from the team, from pretty much everyone, that I needed to go to this World Cup. Like, this is the start of the biggest. At the time, we thought the Olympics was going to be a great thing for the sport, and it was like, it's the unknown. and money's getting tossed around. These kids who are already like the promised children for the teams are getting these 6-figure deals for fucking headphone companies from Visa. Like money's flowing, and I see it. And then that summer, and I also got dropped by Oakley that summer, which was very unfortunate.
Wait, you got dropped by Oakley before the Olympics?
Yeah,
Wait, what?
yeah. So that was a whole kerfuffle. So I was kind of in a weird place. Like that summer, I lost. Like Oakley was my biggest paying sponsor at the time. And
Wait, quick question. Did you wear Oakley at the Olympics?
yeah.
Yeah, go on.
So they kept me for goggles, but I was head to toe like the big deals with Oakley. It was like head to toe, your outerwear, your everything. And then I ended up getting dropped. So between that pay cut,
And I want to say something just for listeners. The reason why when Oakley's looking on black and white on paper, Olympics does not allow you to wear your outerwear. It's a company that sponsors the U.S. team that gets paid that forces Joss or Olympians to wear their clothing during the Olympics. So the guys that invested like Oakley, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars in the sport previous, got nothing out of sponsoring an Olympic athlete. So this is a great example of the first downfall of invested hundreds of millions into twin tip skiing where they didn't want to invest anymore.
yeah. So I had a lot of goals with them in the sense of like I wanted to be with Oakley. They're still one of the coolest in the sport, and Strokes was still giving me out my order of outerwear. Like all my samples were already going to come. So he's like, you can still wear these. And at the time, it's like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to wear this shit, hopefully get back on the full team. But I was on goggles, which was great. But yeah, so I had that financial cut, and then with my dad being in the hospital and just a bunch of weird shit it was just a weird time in my life where I'm like, not a lot is really working out, even though it should be. Like I thought it should be. I took quite a bit of time off because I had a big knee surgery the summer of 2012. That same summer I signed a lot of these deals is when I secretly underwent a cartilage repair, which was what I thought was going to be like a 4-month recovery, turned out to be 12 months of hell. But I still skied on it, which was not smart, but smart because it got me where I was at. But yeah, so
you didn't tell any of your sponsors because you thought you could get something done and not have pain and then had to go through a season of thinking in your head, no one thinks I should be in pain, so I gotta fucking not be in pain.
Totally. It was like, oh, you didn't tear your ACL? Oh, who cares? I'm like, this shit fucking hurts. Like, I shouldn't have skied for a year, is what I learned in the long run. Because I ended up just re-damaging it, which I still never fully got it fixed. I figured it out. But, yeah, so, like, going into that summer of 2013, going to that fall, like, I had a lot of really good years. And then I kind of plateaued. Like, I was on this awesome, like, I'm an amateur. I hit pro level. And then I kind of, like, couldn't really squeak it out. Like maybe I was doing too much with the half pipe stuff. Maybe I wasn't doing enough with maybe not fucking around and filming and just having fun. I should have been training more or focused more. But yeah, so before I went to New Zealand, it was kind of like a do or die situation for the Olympics.
I want to say too, this is the first time in our sport where anyone's having a thought, should I be training more?
Totally.
The biggest thing in our sport is skiing is training. So you're the first experience in twin tip skiing that had to think, am I training? Because every day is training. Like,
totally. And that's why we got so good.
Yeah, so it's just really fun that I just wanted to bring it up because I think you're a very interesting point in the history of our sport.
Totally. I mean, no one knew what the hell was going on. So I'm in the hospital with my mom, with one of their really good friends, and my dad, who I was the last person to see him awake. It was just me at the hospital when it happened, when he kind of went into, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a coma, but unconsciousness. But at that point, there was a lot of crap happening in my family with my dad had a 6 other siblings. And then on the other side, it was just my mom, my brother, and I. And we were obviously fighting and wanted him to fight, but everyone else thought we were doing the wrong thing by... I mean, he was kept alive by the machines.
Yeah.
He was on a dialysis machine at the end. It was not... Look, it was a weird place for anyone in my family, especially my mom, because why is she going to give up?
Yeah, that's...
You know? It's like, why give up when there's a chance? And if the doctors say there's a chance, I wouldn't want to give up.
No, not there. Yeah.
So I left, and the doctors and everyone told me that it was... I should go. It'd been a long summer of not leaving the hospital pretty much every day. This is my dream. And I think in the back of their minds, they knew it was over with my dad. And my dad had loved my skiing so much and was a huge supporter that it kind of came down to like, it would be very dishonorable not to continue this dream, and that he would hate it that he was the reason that I didn't go to this World Cup. I remember I went to the hospital on my way to the airport to New Zealand, and when I flew down, obviously back then phones still didn't work for shit anywhere in the world. So my dad actually passed away that night, early morning.
When you traveled?
When I left, and a lot of us believe that he was waiting for me to go. And it was my mom and his best friend who were there. And I think it was just crazy how it all kind of worked out. But yeah, I got to New Zealand. I didn't know. I actually had to get told by other people. Like, my mom couldn't get a hold of me. There's no internet where we were staying. And then Kerry Miller and then Byron Wells. The Wells, luckily, since they lived down there, were able to find me. And then I was put in a situation where I pretty much turned around right away. I spent like 2 days in New Zealand, turned right back around. At that point, I pretty much gave up on the whole ski thing, because I was like, I need to go be with my family. I need to go hang with my mom. And just like, this is so fucked.
Yeah.
So then I remember getting home, dealing with all that. My mom was in huge financial struggles. My dad his job definitely brought in the majority of the household income, and being in the hospital for that long is fucked up expensive. Extremely.
How long was he in his situation? How long were you dealing with a dad that wasn't in good health?
I mean, for years it was constant small things here and there, getting pacemakers fixed, going to the hospital, but it was probably about a year of like, the doctors told me it's 6 months. They didn't tell me this because I was still skiing the year before. And that spring, it was pretty much 3 to 4 months, I'd say, in the hospital.
Yeah.
So then I came home, and then I watched that World Cup live stream, and I'm sitting there, and no one really did well. The weather sucked, and the U.S., a lot of people kind of wrote the event off, which gave me a little bit of hope. And then we figured out there still was a chance that if I did, so the way the U.S. team qualified you for the Olympics that year is there was 5 events, one including Dew Tour. There's Dew Tour, a World Cup in Copper, 1 in Breckenridge, and 2 in Park City. And it was, if you hit 2 podiums, you were pretty much guaranteed to go. And then,
so FYI, just to clarify, you could qualify for the Olympics through Dew Tour or X Games in 2014.
No X Games, because X Games was after they named the team.
Okay, so you could qualify through non-World Cup events.
So Dew Tour is one of them, yes. So, yeah, I like my girlfriend at that same fall, like right after my dad passed away, my girlfriend cheated on me with another pro skier who I won't name because I don't like him, but you know him pretty well.
Fuck, man. And I can only guess. I know some guys.
You could say it and we could bleep it.
People take all that shit out.
But yeah, so I was dealing with just a lot of shit. Like, my family was torn to bits. Like, everyone hated my mom, which sucked. I broke up with my girlfriend, and it's the fall, and I literally had nothing to do. I didn't want to be in Park City. Because I felt like I wasn't welcome in the crew because they were all nicer to my girlfriend than me, and I was like, okay. I kind of am on the outside. It was just a weird situation in life, and then a good buddy of mine, Chris Laker, his aunt has a condo in Frisco. But yeah, so I just went to Keystone and Breck, and I just smoked a bunch of weed and skied every day by myself, pretty much. And then I didn't even go home for Thanksgiving because I had a place to stay. And it wasn't necessarily
like worried about drug testing on an Olympic year.
I knew I wasn't going to compete for a bit.
Okay.
And Tour wasn't drug testing, so I was like, okay, I got time. And I just had a good crew of friends out there, a small crew. There's like 2 or 3 of us, and yeah, I mean, I just kind of wrote everything off. I sat back and thought, I either make this Olympic team or I got to go back to school because I got to figure out a way to get some money, and my mom needs help, and like my family needs help. I can't keep fucking around if I'm not going to actually make it through in this sport. It was like I thought we were going to lose the house. Like a lot of shit was not going well. I was making decent money still. I was able to help my mom out a bit, but it wasn't like if I kept going that path and if it stayed stagnant, it would have crashed. It wouldn't have worked out well. It would have been. And I really sat back and I thought, all right, it's now or never. Like I have some time. Like we're still figuring all this financial shit out with my dad and everything. I have some time. I really know nothing else in life. I didn't have a girlfriend anymore, so I was living with my mom. I could just go to Colorado and ski and not worry about anything. I kind of just disconnected from the world in a sense, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna ski, make sure I love this, become the best skier I can, give this season like one good shot, and then if it doesn't happen, then I will keep skiing, but I am gonna go to school. Because I need to get a degree or I need to figure out some sort of job while skiing, hopefully. But at this time, skiing was pretty impossible to. A lot of kids did it. I don't have the mental capacity to do it, to school and ski, because I'm just maybe too ADD. Yeah, I was pretty much like sit back and like, I got to make this shit happen. And I like really wanted it. So I just chilled in Breckenridge, didn't go home for Thanksgiving because I had no, like, besides my mom, like I didn't want to see my extended family. They're all a bunch of dicks at the time, so I just chilled out in Breckenridge until Dew Tour, and I actually ended up learning in one afternoon with Schlopey and Sammy C. I went and learned to switch a natural dub 9 at Breckenridge, or no, at Keystone, which I then used like 3 days later at Dew Tour, made finals, put down a good run, but after the first event in Dew Tour, I was 5th ranked out of the Americans, and Gepper won. And then the next event in Copper, which is a week later, it snowed. I qualified first in my heat. Crazy thing, Candide was in my heat that year because I think he did the one World Cup.
I forgot he went for it that year.
Which was mind-blowing because he's one, out of all my idols and pros, he's the only one that I never really got to know.
You know, a lot of people that know him haven't got to know.
Yeah. But yeah, so that event, I ended up getting I got 13th, which I was maybe the 6th American, and Schlopey got 12th. And then...
Did you beat Candide?
What?
Did you beat Candide?
Only because he was doing his quick reverts, which is honestly more difficult, but in the judges' eyes, they don't fuck with that.
Yeah,
so that was his downfall, unfortunately. But then things got even crazier because at practice for the 3rd World Cup in Breckenridge, I smacked my knee on a rail really bad, and I thought I split my kneecap in half. So I didn't ski at all. I missed that World Cup. At that point, Bobby and Gepper were qualified for the US team. So 2 spots were taken.
2 out of 4.
2 out of 4. Walsh had a blown knee. He's pretty much, in my mind, guaranteed the coach's discretion spot, which is spot number 4.
And Bobby's kind of like the superstar, right? Like everyone's kind of like thinking Bobby's the golden child this year.
Yeah, Bobby and Walsh, they were it. And then you have Gus.
Really? Did you think in 2014 Tom Walsh was the golden child like Bobby as a skier? I didn't as an outlooker. Like I looked at him as lucky if he got in because I think he blew his knee in the fall or something.
So I was there when he blew his knee. If he didn't blow his knee, he would have won the Olympics, I think.
Okay.
But unfortunately, he did have a blown knee, so it changed the game up. It was
Doesn't that make him lose the coach's discretion? Is my point. You knew that he blew his knee in November, so as a competitor in January, you're like, yo, this motherfucker like has to be like bigger than Superman.
So he actually, on the Wallish thing real quick, because that shit fucked with me pretty hard. He took the honorable route. So Torn had some shit happen with his lungs and didn't do any of the qualifying events and got the coach's discretion spot. But Wallish, and he couldn't, I don't think Torn could have skied anyways, but Wallish did the right thing and tried to be like, look, my knees, I don't have an ACL, but I'm going to prove to you guys that I can still fucking do this shit.
Yeah.
Which was very honorable, and I think a lot of people kind of look past that in the sense of like, this guy blew his knee in November and almost made the Olympic team with a blown knee. But so that's what it all came down to, the last two events. So yeah, so I missed the third event. So at this point, I'm like down bad. I'm like, shit just keeps fucking hitting me, and I keep fucking up. And like, it just seems a lot of it's out of my control. Like my knee's all messed up. I couldn't ski for, luckily we had about 2 weeks between the third and then the fourth and fifth, which were back-to-back Olympic qualifiers. And so the last two were here in Park City. And then I remember on one side, this is when weed went legal in Breckenridge. So when I fucked up my knee, I went and bought a bunch of edibles, thinking like, I'm out. Like there's no way I'm even going to compete again, which was a bad call. Cause then once I'm feeling good, huge ups to Jen Kimball at the US ski team.
At what time in January 2014?
Yeah. And then the Jen Kimball, one of the best physical therapists I've ever met at the US ski team, she just worked with me every day to get my knee. Like I luckily didn't break my knee, but I fucked it up pretty bad. And then just got my motion back. I got my knee like bending again. And then it was game time. So I'm sitting there drinking condensed cranberry juice like a crack addict and drinking as much water as I can because I'm freaking out.
Why? Because that gets rid of THC out of your system?
That's what, I don't know. I guess, right?
I've never heard that one. That's awesome. Condensed cranberry juice. All right, kids.
But that was word on the street. So I'm just chugging that every night. And then I'm sitting back thinking, all right, if I podium these last two events here in Park City, I'll make the Olympic team. But I have to beat these motherfuckers. And it was mostly only Americans at this event. It was pretty much only Americans. So you had to win. Yeah, so the first day, I got fourth. And Schlopey won.
Did you get drug tested day one?
No. They actually didn't do any drug tests at all, which was great. But at least there, because it wasn't an actual World Cup. It was just U.S. sanctioned by the U.S. team. It wasn't FIS. But it was like the U.S. qualifying. But so I got fourth. Missed the podium. Bobby and Gus that day pretty much solidified their spot in the team. So then there's one spot left, but Schlopey just won. So he won day one. So I'm sitting there thinking, it's Nick, Bobby, Gus, Schlopey. Like, that was the team. And then McRae's kind of right there, too. And McRae's kind of just like the silent killer. He's coming in hot. And then that night, I remember sitting in bed being like, kind of losing my marbles a bit. Like, I didn't really sleep the night before the last event because I'm like, well, it's pretty much impossible now. Even if I win, I don't think if Schlopey gets on the podium again and even if I win, I don't make the team. I come out the next day and I win by like 5 points. I got like a 97 or something, and I ended up winning. And unfortunately for Schlopey, he got 7th. So then we're sitting there, and everyone's all.
And what were Schlopey's best results before?
He won so at Park City, there's 2 events back to back. He won day 1, and I won day 2.
Yeah, okay, so he had a win. Okay, so he had a win. All right, I'm getting it.
But I had a win in a 4th and a 5th, and then and a 13th, and then he had a win, a 7th, a 6th, and a 7th or something. But his 12th place, or no, I beat him. Sorry, at Copper, I got 12th. He got 13th. It all came down to that event. No one knows, but it came down to that event.
That's fucked up. So, okay. Well, see, this is what we all missed for the last 45 minutes if we went straight to your question.
Oh, no, dude, this is so epic.
Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah.
To me, it's so wild. Like, all this shit. Like, it's because it's so intense for an individual's brain. Because the mental game, I believe, is bigger than the physical game because all these kids are the best. So when all of a sudden he has to sit in bed the night before thinking about bullshit other than what he has to do, it's a waste of energy.
Well, I came out that next day being like, well, might as well give it a good shot because, like, don't go down without swinging. I thought it was over. And then I absolutely destroyed everyone, which was amazing. But the stress didn't
What
stop
run
there.
did you do your best run on?
It was my first run in finals.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like, I was looking at the scores on my phone. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm on the chair with Wallish, and I could tell everyone was like, uh-oh, Josh just got points. Like, Josh just...
And you had to have a number. If you won by 5 points in the first round of scores, it had to be such a ridiculous run. Because there's no way they give you that score when they're doing their calculations for the future rounds.
And I will say, one of the crazy things was, who is the guy, one of the judges, his name was Mike, Lubeck.
Yeah.
Lubeck at the time said that was the best slopestyle run he'd ever seen. That was nuts to hear that. But the stress didn't stop there. It just almost got worse because I'm sitting back and there's this huge argument between, okay, you got Jocelyn Schlopey. You also got
Hey,
McCray.
so just quick question, date.
Yeah.
What's the date? So Olympics starts the first week of February. Where are we at in your life? What date of the year?
This is mid-January, like January 15th.
2.5 weeks before opening ceremonies.
And we still have fucking
This
X
is
Games
stressful.
between the two.
Yeah.
And then, so the stress didn't end there because, for one, it was like, do I get the spot? Do I not? Does Walsh get the spot? Does Schlopey get the spot? Do I get the spot? But then it wasn't, before they even decided on us getting a fourth spot, we didn't know if Moguls got that spot or Slopestyle got that spot. Because there's only 32, the quota for freestyle was 32 people. So then you couldn't send a full team at all. Like we sent, that year it was so tight because of the addition of halfpipe and slopestyle that we sent one aerialist, which sucks because the guy who got screwed was one of my really good buddies at the time, Dylan Ferguson, who should have gone for aerials. But slopestyle and halfpipe fucked that because we sent like no skier cross, we sent one aerialist, but it came down to moguls. So I'm sitting there watching a mogul event on my phone, praying to God this homie doesn't get second place, because if he got second place, he was getting the
How do you know all these numbers? Who's the statistician that
Gus.
tells you? Because this is so dope. We're talking like NFL, ESPN, the shit that Ethan does when they're doing breakdowns, and I've never heard this. So who's telling you these numbers of who needs to do what?
So like my agent, the U.S. team's telling me a little bit, mostly Gus and his agent. Gus is like a nerd about this shit. So
Okay.
Gus is sitting there being like, you heard anything? You heard anything? You heard anything? Like, have you checked
He's
this out?
already qualified, and he's asking you.
Yeah, well, because it was awesome because he wanted me to get the spot because we were so
I
tight.
get it. I'm
Yeah.
just saying the stress is on you when he asks you, not him.
Yeah, so then I'm sitting there, and then this homie in moguls gets third. So then it's up in the air. So at that point, I'm like, fuck, it's still on the edge. I don't know how this is working. I'm not going to bug the U.S. team. I'm too shy of a human being to do this shit. I just got to put my head down. And, like, the dream was still, that was the thing, is the dream was still there. You know, like, it was that whole, like, previous year slowly been building, and it kept feeling like it was out of my reach. But it was still possible. Like, it's still there. And then getting to, Ethan, your story here, or like what you asked, was, none of us know, but we have X Games. And obviously X Games is like, that's the shit. Like
A week before opening ceremony?
a week before, like 5 days before we would fly out to Russia. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to X Games. Life is not in shambles. It's just nuts. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on. There's this crazy hope that, yeah, I might get the final spot.
Is Alex in the same position as you?
And Schlopey too, and we have the same agent, Jersey, so he's not going to sit there and fight for one. He's just going to sit back and be like, I don't know.
So there's two people that almost have equal right for potential opportunity for a spot that no one knows how it should be allocated.
If it doesn't go to Wallish.
Oh yeah, just coaches discretionary on top of numbers.
If Slopestyle gets 4 spots. There's a lot of ifs. So, and McCray was still in the picture too. Like, McCray had a bunch of really good results. I think he was actually point-wise really damn close. But ultimately, so I'm driving, like, what I ended up finding out first was that the U.S. team went into all these stats of like who showed up to camps, who goes to the gym more, yada yada yada, trying to like separate Slopey and I from each other. And luckily, it came down to that I had like one more point than him or something crazy, but I didn't know because I didn't have the list. But so McCrae, Slopey, and I all get in our cars and carpool to X Games. At that point, we're driving, and when you drive from Park City to Aspen, there's a pretty big zone on the border where we take like a dirt road shortcut, and there's no cell phone service for about
Dinosaur.
Yeah, exactly. The old the Deserato Mine Road. So Gus is starting to call me, being like, "Bro, did you hear? Did you hear?" And I'm like, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" And we all knew that Skogan was going to call us no matter what, because they have to do you the honor of, "Hey, you didn't make it," or "Hey, you made it." So I'm driving, and then Skogan tries to call, but it wouldn't work. Like Gus, it wouldn't work. So I'm getting all these missed calls, but the calls keep dropping, and I'm like, "Fuck." So then I just take off. So when I finally got back into service, Skogan calls again, and then he says, "You need to pull over." He's like, "Are you driving?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "You should pull over." I'm like, "Oh, damn it." Like, he doesn't want me to be bummed and fucking do some bad, stupid shit because of, like, the bad news. And then he kind of draws it out because obviously they're recording it. It gets to a point where I'm like, this could go either way. And then he goes, "Just wanted to congratulate you on making the first ever Olympic slopestyle team." And that's when I was like, holy fuck.
You guys were in separate cars, right? You're not in the same car.
We were all in separate cars.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I thought you were in the same car.
Sorry. That's what I meant. We were all in our own cars, luckily.
All right. Yeah, that would be so weird.
But they took off, and they ended up being like an hour ahead of me because I called my mom, but I wasn't allowed to tell anyone but my mom. But I know the other guys know. Like, and then we get to X Games, and then they release the list, and obviously Slopey and I had to, like, we would be stoked for each other no matter what. But it was awkward, and luckily Oakley roomed us with separate people for the week. I think they kind of knew. Like, they put me with Byron Wells, which is great, and Slopey was someone else. But then news hits the internet, and I'm practicing for slopestyle, and I become public enemy number one because Tom didn't get the spot, and some random kid Joss got the spot. Yeah,
you ain't no one compared to the pretzel, man.
And I couldn't even go on my phone. I'm getting new schoolers. It was the one time where I was like, I can't even go on new schoolers. People are shitting on me left and right.
And that was your spot, man. You were posting, people were liking, they were your friends for the previous 10 years.
Yeah. So I'm getting torn apart. I'm getting so many messages on Instagram saying, you need to give up your spot and give it to Wallish. You can't go.
Let's call an asshole out. Is there anyone with a real name that said this, or were these all pricks, little kids?
There were mostly little kids. There were some random people that I knew on Instagram who said stuff.
There was no professional athlete that really came at you to hurt your feelings that much. I'm just wondering.
It was no one who respected the sport in the sense of none of
no one that you had respect for.
Exactly. It was just a bunch of cult followers.
All right. I'm just wondering if you had anyone that you cared about that had an opinion about you.
Luckily, no. I mean, if they did, they didn't voice it, which was nice of them.
Awesome.
But so then we're at X Games, and I just made the Olympics. I have a lot of crazy shit going on in my mind because I don't want to get hurt. I just got the spot. But I need to beat Slopey and Tom. If both these kids beat me, or if either of these kids beat me, this is going to be bad. So this ruined my X Games, 100%. All I could think in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, you've got to beat these guys. You have to land a run. You can't get hurt. 3 crazy thoughts. I beat them both. Luckily, I qualified second. Wallish beat me in qualifying. And then in the event, I ended up getting 5th, I think, in finals. But I beat Slopey, I beat Wallish. McCrae gets fucking second place.
Who won?
Gepper.
Okay.
But at that point, I'm like, holy smokes, this all just happened. Like, I did what I had to do. As much as it sucks to say, I had to beat Wallish. Like, I just had to. And then I just remember walking away from the athlete lounge, getting in my car to head home, feeling so relieved because it'd been like months and months of pressure of nonstop, even making the team instant hate. I mean, the hate didn't stop, but that was like part one. Like, prove yourself, beat
So is this a solo mission in your life? Are you driving home alone?
yeah.
And you're going back to a place where you just lost your dad like last summer. You
Yeah.
just like, I'm just trying to.
Not even last summer, like 4 months before.
Yeah. You know, like I'm just putting it really into perspective for people because like all this shit is such a fucking bullshit drama on top of reality in life.
And like breaking up with my girlfriend and like just all this crazy stuff happened. And I was sad a lot that year. Like it was crazy. It was like, it was definitely a roller coaster. But yeah, so then at that point, I'm driving home, and then like I was like really happy all of a sudden, but still was like, fuck, I'm going to the Olympics now. Like I got to really step it up. And like I didn't have anything planned. Luckily, the U.S. Olympic team pays for your flights. So, like luckily, that's all that and that. But then I guess that was just like my crazy story of qualifying and how rough the U.S. qualifying situation was. Because yeah, I mean, almost all my best friends who are from other countries, they knew months before. Like a lot of kids didn't have, like a lot of these, which I believe made us the best skiers in the world in the US, because a lot of the other countries were taking time off of contests to stay away from injury.
Yep.
But we had to go. Like we had no other opportunity than compete. And then everything changed from there, which was nuts. But one crazy thing, real quick, when we were heading to Sochi, I was so damn hyped that I like made it through. That we spent the night in Munich to do our processing and get all our uniforms and stuff. I got so drunk I blacked out. The last thing I remember was like hitting on these Polo Ralph Lauren girls in the hotel. But those girls were there for like 3 weeks, so of course they're just gonna party. And then I come to when the plane is landing in Sochi with an extremely bad hangover, still fucked up, no idea what happened, no idea where any of my stuff is, with the first thought of, well, you already fucked it, you're going home. Like, obviously you fucked up, you don't have your passport or anything on you. And no one said a word to me. Luckily, Sage Kotzeberg, the snowboarder at the time, was like probably my best friend from Park City. And then between him, Carrie Herman, Bobby a little bit, and Gus and Skogan, like everyone was like, okay, this needs to be kind of contained. Let's just.
So you had like 2 moms and a dad taking care of you.
Yeah, like getting me through security at the airport, getting me on the plane, and like making sure I don't lose anything. And we had so much gear too. That's the crazy part. We just picked up like 4 bags of shit.
Okay, so that's awesome. That's another great story. So when you qualify for the Olympics and you got an agent, does anything crazy happen to you going into the first Olympics, being selected? Opportunities like, oh man, like if you win, like here's a deal for the Wheaties box.
No.
You know, because I know most Americans sign a contract if they're known like they should be a winner. They can do like all these pre-contracts. Like if you're a winner, you get this automatically. You had nothing?
No, I mean, I was still like, I think across the whole industry, everyone was just dumbfounded that I got the spot. A bunch of people who maybe weren't necessarily paying attention. I mean, my bib number was 34. Gepper's number was 1. Like, that's how far we were in the FIS rankings from each other.
You're going in with these guys that are fucking superstars, right? So now I'm putting myself in your shoes. Like, I just made it last minute. I'm the guy who, like, maybe people don't think should make it. I beat out guys that think they should make it. Like, it's a lot to absorb within 5 days. You know, so, like, when you do it, are you there to have fun, or you're like, yo, fuck this, man. I want to win it. Like, what is your mentality once you really get to actually focus on what the purpose of your job is, if that makes sense.
Totally. I mean, I still had huge pressure from the internet to do something.
Still talking shit.
Yeah, 100%. Like
And you're reading this in Russia?
I stopped. I was just like, fuck it. I'm all good, bro. I'm gonna like, obviously in my mind, I'm like, I need to do well for multiple reasons. Like the craziest, like the coolest thing was making it. You know, I was obsessed with Harry Potter as a kid, and it felt like, oh, I'm in Hogwarts. We're all in our own uniforms, in our own dorms. Like, this shit's fucking cool. But I also need to honor everyone who tried to make it. I need to honor my family, myself. I need to have a lot of respect for myself and not give it my all. And yeah, obviously, like, dude, I didn't think I had a chance of winning, but I was like, dude, I could. You know, I've been skiing really well lately. I just got 5th at X Games with the same people. I won an event a week prior to that. I know I can do well, but I got to learn a trick. Like, when I showed up, I was like, I'm 100% unprepared to do well in this event. Triples are now a thing. You're going to have a triple to do well.
And you didn't have one going into the Olympics.
No.
Okay.
No. So then I'm like fully focused at this point. I dodged a bullet by my little drunken mishap. I need to sit the fuck down and focus. Things really came to at X Games the week before. I really wanted to take that switch right double 9 that I learned before the first Olympic, before Dew Tour that season. And I knew I needed a triple, but my left switch dub 10 was too flippy. And the switch right just kept feeling so good. And at X Games, I almost tried the switch right triple, but it was just super icy and just didn't feel right. Like, I was like, I got this at the Olympics. Get to the Olympics, and these jumps are.
So, have you ever done a triple going into the Olympics in your whole entire life in a contest?
No.
Or in practice, or like, have you done it on even a trampoline or foam pit or nothing?
I didn't even try it.
Airbag?
No. I didn't even try
Water ramp?
No. Fuck hitting a water ramp switch. But I learned that switch right dub 9, and then it just kept going so well. Like, the rotation just felt so good to me that it got in my head a bit earlier. I'm like, if I'm going to do a triple, this is the one I'm going to do. And then it was the last practice session we had before the actual contest day. And it's super flat light. I've been thinking about it. The last jump was just so perfect and massive. And then I kept thinking about it, but I didn't tell anyone. I definitely didn't tell the coaches because I didn't want to get in my head or anything. And everyone's gone, and there's all like the other teams doing like intel, so you didn't want to do shit in front of other coaches. So I'm just skiing, and it's flat light, and I'm going to the last jump, and Gus ate shit on the second jump, so he's walking up the knuckle looking at me. I'm like, watch this, Gus. I think if Gus wasn't walking up that knuckle watching me, give me a little bit of that like spontaneous, like, yo, check this shit out. I just went for it, landed it. I was just like trying to brag to him, you know, and you see sometimes like, oh, there's like when you're in the park and your buddy's on the chair watching, you're like, I got to do something cool.
So your first triple ever was Gus is on the knuckle at the Olympics, and you're like, I got this shit.
Because I've been thinking about it, and like the double was, I could see everything. Like, if I just set this a little harder, it should work. I mean, what's the worst?
Just to put it in perspective, think how many kids go into the Olympics next year. Like, and they're like, I've been training this triple fucking 8,000 times. I got the muscle memory. I'm going to be the best. You're so polar opposite from the idea of being the best that they have.
Well, totally, and that's a mental game though, and that's what I think fucks people up nowadays. Is they are too maybe overconfident versus maybe they're not ready to actually try something, but they have the facility to try it. Versus I truly think in that moment I was ready mentally, and like just I'd put my time in with the double. And I've been thinking about it, and I think it was just one of those situations where it was just the right time to try it. And then I remember getting to the top. I couldn't believe I landed it. I'm like, does anyone know? Does anyone know? And then Scogan comes up and goes, did you just do a triple? I'm like, yeah. And then it was just a little weird. And then word kind of spread throughout a bunch of the athletes.
We're like, did you do it dope? Were you like, hell, you fuck yeah, you just grabbed it? Like, or was it you landed and you were like, what level do you do your first triple at? Because like with Henrik, right? His first nose butter triple was a contest.
Yeah,
right? Had to be perfect, had to be all these things. So I'm curious in the practice realm, when you just did it before you have to compete it, like are you like, yo, I got that locked? Or did you just put your feet down and then you know you can perfect it more?
I laced it. I laced the second one, and then
Like you even got your grab the whole time, your first one, like trying it out, sick.
yeah, it was. And then luckily, our one of the our ski tech films everything because he's bored during the day, and then I got to watch. I don't know if I actually watched it that night or not, but the whole game switched for me. At that point, I'm like, well, you just landed the first unnatural triple in a run, or like on a slopestyle course, not in a contest yet. Now my formula for a run, because there's formulas now, and like that's kind of when this started, where it's like you got to spin this way, switch forward, left, right. You can't do the same shit on rails, like yada yada yada. This is when all this started to become a thing. Yeah, so that night was pretty fucked. I barely slept because I sat back and I thought, well, I could win. In the way of like, let's go. But it maybe wasn't I could win. It was like, that's the part of the process. That's what I needed to shut the internet up, to prove mostly for myself, I wanted to do it. But I was like, this is what I needed to be at the Olympics. Like I am at the Olympics. I was happy to think that if this is the biggest stage we're ever going to be on, you better give it your all. And I was like, it took me days and days of practice to finally be like, try something new and get out of my comfort zone and actually be like, this is the time to do it. No fear of anything else besides the want to progress skiing. And then at that point, I think I scared a bunch of people. No one really talked about it, but people heard about it. And I was nervous. I'm like, I just got to get to finals to fucking try it. And for me, it was obviously the competitor inside, like, I want to fucking win. And it wasn't like to get rich or famous. It was motivated by the hate and need to prove myself. But deep down inside, like I think the reason I landed the triple was I wanted to do it. Like I wanted to be there. I wanted to showcase skiing. I wanted to not necessarily be like an underdog story, but show that our sport, anyone can win on any day. And that
you also had the ability to be straightforward, though, right? Like your visualization of the trick was there. It wasn't like you just went and hucked it.
No, it was I prepared for it. Like I didn't tell anyone.
You want to make sure that's known when you say that, because you're like, I got the triple, I did it. But I'm like, the visualization part is so important for people that are listening. You know, to know that you're not like just like, oh, I can do it. Woo! It's like,
yeah,
it's a big fucking deal to be like, oh, I got this many doubles. I know this speed does that, puts me here, etc.
Totally. And I mean, I had like daydreams of like laying in bed months before where I was like envisioning, and I do a lot of talks with younger kids about like the mental part of skiing and being a competitor. And it's like I remember sitting in bed a couple times just daydreaming of like being at the bottom of the Olympics doing back-to-back switch triples and winning. But I hadn't even thought of doing one triple yet at that point in time. So that's what was crazy, is I was able to set a goal that was so damn high that even when I met one part of that, which was one of the triples, it was just like that's
you thought about it, envisioned, manifested, and then also visualized.
Totally. And it was just like I wanted it. It was like a big part of it too is to prove to myself that I was a good skier, I guess. Like I felt like I was missing out on a lot of for how obsessed and how much time I've spent obsessing over skiing and literally giving up everything else, opportunities, not having girlfriends as a kid, just skiing. Like I don't know, just really always just obsessed and focused and every aspect of skiing. I think that's why at the Olympics I wasn't really nervous.
Do you go into sleep that night like I'm gonna win this shit?
I didn't necessarily think I'm going to win, but I sat back and thought Gepper, who was favorited to win, will do a triple. Gus will do a triple. Bobby will do a triple.
Did they already do them in slopestyle? Have you already seen them do it in an event?
Gus and Gepper did them at X Games the week before.
Okay.
So it was the second event, slopestyle event, where people did triples in the contest. So there was kind of like
you won in slopestyle, but you knew he had one in big air, so you knew
exactly. Like the bar was set. Like if you're gonna win, if you want to be top tier athlete, which I always wanted to be, I always wanted my name to be up there with the other boys. Yeah, I mean the first part was I have to get to the point where I do the triple, but a lot of people maybe heard about it, but no one saw it because I did it the day before. I ended up winning qualifying, which was insane, without doing the triple. But I
who was second and third in qualifying?
Andreas got second, and then I think
Woods.
it was Woodsy. Yeah, because Gus and Nick were a bit lower down the start order because after winning qualifying, I couldn't believe it, and I was like, now this shit's real because I just did my soft version of this run. Holy shit, if I didn't, I know more people are going to bust out some new tricks, but if I just scored that well without doing a triple, that means my rails were top notch. Yeah, and then in finals, they salted the fucking course and they hadn't salted the whole week. And unfortunately, Bobby was like the test subject, and we saw him go like 160 feet and crumble on the last jump.
In training or during finals?
So in training, I did 3.5. I almost did a quad on accident, which was crazy because I got all mentally fucked on that. But they salted after practice before finals, so no one knew.
No one knew.
So like we didn't really no one's really, we're not paying attention to they're raking, but are they throwing salt? So we didn't see, and then luckily since I dropped last, I got to see 11 other people test the speed out for me. So I'm watching on the little monitor being like, K's slowing down a lot more than we used to. Like,
yeah.
Still crazy though, because I went huge on my first run, and then I actually messed up my triple in my first run. Like I didn't get the pop I needed. So it didn't flip really, but I guess it still looked cool because of that. But I went so big and I landed, and then in the video, if you watch, I get to the bottom and I put my hands on my head because in my mind, it looks like I'm like, holy crap, I just landed that. Like, that's the winning run. But in my mind, I'm like, I just fucked that up. Like, everything was perfect and I just messed up the triple.
Yeah.
But then my score came in and it was the highest score of the day. And then that's when I was like, holy smokes, I could do this even better.
Yeah.
But the wildest part was going up the chairlift alone after that. Like, I'm in all sorts of messed up. I'm like, all right, well, I definitely have a top 3. Like, I don't think it was like a 96.8. Like, that's going to be pretty hard for 3 people to beat that. And I'm going up the chair, and there's a crow just circling me the whole time. And all I could think of was that's my dad, because I'm a big believer in crows being spirits of the mountains. And I'm just like, this is nuts. And then I just kind of like sat in the trees for a little bit, listened to some Mobb Deep, and just had to keep my cool because it wasn't over yet. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, how can I step that run up? I know Gepper is going to go. He's the favorite to win. I know there's a lot of people who could possibly do some crazy shit. Gus could beat me. Like, Gus almost did. And then all I was thinking of is I have to do that triple, but to 14. Instead of 1260, I got to do a 1440. So I'm sitting there at the top. Everyone's like, the cameras are all over me. Everyone's giving me cheers. The other and I had to watch 11 of the best skiers in the world try and beat me. And in the back of my mind, I'm just like not focusing, just focusing on.
Is it only a 2-run final?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all in one day too. This whole event was in one day.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there, and one of the coolest things that happened to me that whole day was, I mean, obviously my phone's blowing up. People are like, "You're gonna win." I'm just trying not to look at it. Gepper didn't put a second run down. Gus moved from third to second. Or Gus didn't land his first run, moves into second. And at that point, I didn't mean to be cocky, but I was like, there's not many other people who could bump me out right now. It was me, Gus Gepper. And then Andreas Hotbite was the last person to drop before me. And he gives me like a big hug right before he goes into the start gate. And then as he's in the start gate, he just looks over and says, "Congratulations, dude, you deserve this." As in like, not, and I'm like, "No, dude, you got to get this." But in his mind, he wasn't going to do, I think knew he didn't have the difficulty. He could have, I still think him and Henrik had the potential. I mean, Henrik could have beat me 100%. I think he had that little hand touch. I think that was
no hand touch, he would have won. It would have been over. But
that was
like the beginning of the end where you're like, okay, it's official, degree of difficulty wins. But you're totally right. Like it's just like, but that's the dopest shit about Andreas.
And it was so cool because, yeah, I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, this dude who I've idolized my whole life, who's made it known that he's kind of done competing now, that this is it for him. I was like sad, stoked, but I felt like maybe it was different for him, but I had this crazy moment where there's no one else in the world but like one of the most accomplished pro skiers in the world from Norway, who's maybe more obsessed with skiing than anyone else.
Yeah, way more than you for sure, even though you are.
Yeah,
he's giving me even more than me, even though I know I am.
Exactly. He's giving me props and congratulating me. And then he lands a perfect run, and I had to sit there, and I kept looking at Skog, and I'm like, dude, just tell me, like, what happened? And I got the news at the top that I won. And at that point, I remember in slopestyle for women, Dara Howell had a victory run, but she did like 360s down it. And I thought it was nothing. You do what you want, but I'm like, it's very anticlimactic.
Yes, it's not fun. We don't appreciate that.
And in my mind, the first thought was, I can do that run better, so I'm going to do it better. I don't want to dishonor anyone who's failed along the way to get here. And I got to fucking bang it down. And it was like the most fun run of my life.
And did you outscore your first run?
I think I tied my first. I mean, it was in my opinion, it was way better.
Okay. So whatever.
But at that point, the contest is over. I don't think it actually was higher than this. I think it was a little bit lower. But I also think the judges were kind of just like, we're done. Like the contest is over. That's my opinion.
Well, either way, man, big up yourself for doing that, because I think that a victory lap means you have proven that you could do something. So why wouldn't you do it again?
Like for me, it was like, dude, everyone here has been working for like maybe some people maybe 2 years to get to this one day. Just finish it out. Why not finish it out?
You did another fun, right? So you did another triple then on your second run.
Yeah, it was way better. Like in my opinion, that was the one I wanted to do. Like that's the run that most people see online is actually my second run.
I think you have the craziest moment in our sport. Not only for the first Olympic gold medal, but you swept an American podium with Gepper and Gus. You have the most famous person in the whole Olympics is a Swedish kid that lost his pants. Right? So now you're in so we have highlights of the Olympics. Team USA sweeps. Above that, number one thing, kid skier loses his pants. And then we have this champion. Not even yet. Then we have hashtag date Nick. And then we have a coming out gay guy that brought home puppies. And then we have Joss. You're number 5, man, on Twin Tip Ski Stories. And that's what I was like talking with Phil this morning, Castlebon. I was like, man, it's so crazy how many stories came out. And I was like, you know what's fun? Josh had to deal with hashtag I want to date Nick, or the guy who brought back puppies. So I want to ask the first person that I've ever been able to ask in 10 years, what was it like as the guy who wins where, I mean, the hashtag that Gepper did was maybe the biggest thing internally online for our sport?
No, it was very frustrating to be honest. Because I honestly think like say I got first and say Henrik was in third, or Henrik got second and Andreas got third.
Yep.
we all, in our own rights, in our own countries, would have been way bigger than the three of us in the U.S. became. Because I got a third of the attention versus, even if I got second and I was the only American who got second,
You would have so
American on the podium, I would have had a lot more opportunities. I think there would have been a lot more focus on me, and I was totally cool to share the spotlight. Like Gus,
this isn't negative. I'm just interested because the two biggest storylines was not the gold medal, and that's what I was like when we used to sit back. We were kind of bummed on because the storyline was not the guy who accomplished. It was the sideshows, and that I'm not talking shit, but I'm being real. This is straight fact.
100%.
You know, because they did it at the highest level. Here's my dogs. I got the morning show. Here's the girls that want to date me. So, yeah, I just wanted to hear it from your perspective. So I just want to clarify. I'm not saying fuck these two guys. I'm saying...
Oh, no. Totally. I mean, mad respect to both parties because they were very smart. So it was damage control is what I believe his was, because all these athletes before going to the Olympics, they have like managers and agents. Like Jersey, my agent wasn't even there. You know, like I didn't have a team behind me, but a lot of these people have teams behind them, which is smart.
Gepper and Gus?
Yeah, so Gepper had like a PR agent, and they cooked that whole thing up because Valentine's Day was the next day.
Okay.
So we went to bed, and when we woke up on, I think it was Good Morning America, we went to the first thing the next morning, blindsided by this shit. Out of nowhere.
So you're going into the winning, sweeping American team, and fucking Gepper third place. Fucking
and they come out of nowhere, out of left field. They like stopped the show. I thought we were going to talk about skiing because that's all. I'm not media trained at the time. All I know is, yeah, skiing's sick. I fucking love it. Like, it's dope. They stop the show and they go, well, to celebrate Valentine's Day, and there's this whole side piece of Nick being like, hashtag I want to date Nick, and I'm sitting there being like, a lot of us, we didn't really get along at the time, but that's just old, young, competitive drama, and all I could think of was, wow, that was smart as fuck. Like, he just diverted the attention to third place, you know?
As second place in America and third place in America, you're a loser. So, like, that's what's different in an Olympic world compared to the rest of the world. So, yeah. All right, keep going.
Yeah, and then, I mean, it was unfortunate. The dog thing was chill. I mean, it's just the public eye doesn't understand our sport, and that's what I was really trying to hope to use this opportunity to be like, this is what slopestyle skiing is. This is what free skiing is. We're not athletes, we're skiers. Yeah. But no one wants to talk about the actual, like anything with the Olympics, the sports part about it, unless you're breaking records, doesn't really come up in the sense of, I spent 2 to 3 weeks in New York after, and it was a constant battle of like, how the puppies, how's the dating contest? Joss, do you have anything to say? And I'm like, I guess. I don't know. And, you know, I remember getting to a point where I was like, I got to do something. Like, I got to, like, because it was always it was fun, but, like, in the end of the day, even if I didn't win the interview, you know, it was always, like, another contest.
So how are you going to win?
I'd be like, well, I have the gold medal, so, like, it doesn't really matter. You know? Like, the true ones, like, the true skiers, the people I really care about what they think of me, is this actual skiers and the people that I associate with and my fellow competitors and fellow just free skiers, and getting that respect. I was like, well, they all know I won. Maybe when I'm walking down the streets in New York, they don't know that I'm the winner. They know I'm like one of the 3 guys. But I just wanted to go fucking ski. I was like, this is my opportunity now to quit competing and go do some sick shit.
How did the haters change their tune when you took home the gold?
Did anyone think that you shouldn't have won?
The debate actually on the internet, which I thought was weird, was between me and Gepper. A lot of people thought Gepper should have beat me.
Fuck that, Henrik.
That's the thing that I thought. Like, I thought there would be more arguments with him with Henrik and I, which there were, but the main
degree of difficulty in the hand drag always wins in competition. That's a proven fact. So you win when we're talking judge sport.
Yeah. So I think a hand drag's like dock 7 point or like 5 points or something, or 3 points on that feature. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it was still like the Gepper thing, but the coolest thing was a lot of people messaged me who sent me hate messages, and they're like, "Sorry, bro. Like, hats off to you." I had a few people who I knew, like, kind of knew, like Mary O'Neill, if you remember her, who was like a Wallace super fan.
I'm from Minnesota.
Okay, yeah, you know her. Yeah, so she was one that sent me one of the craziest messages ever, and I like couldn't even read it without.
Did she say you disrespected the sport and Tom Wallish because he deserves the spot?
And she was the one who was like, "You need to give up your spot. You need to give it to."
This was a 50-year-old woman writing this, little boy.
And then she sent me a very nice apology after I won, which was I never responded to it because I still thought the first comment was so out of pocket that she didn't deserve a response. But I mean, a lot of people were. It was almost like an underdog story in the sense of I feel like from the core community of skiers, I was maybe not seen as like a compy guy, but I maybe spoke up for a lot of the homies that I grew up skiing with and that never really made it that next tier, who just love skiing. And it was really cool. I mean, a bunch of my buddies in Salt Lake made money betting on me because my odds were like 25-1 or something.
But Josh, we got to ask you, because we've been asking these guys this. What's the most ridiculous favor, opportunity, party, celebrity encounter, whatever, that you've gotten from being a gold medalist?
I mean, I think there's two cool things that happened, like in like public, just through appearances. I did one of the last shows with David Letterman when he was on the late night show.
That's so sick. Yeah.
Which was super fresh, and I got to sit right next to him and actually talk to him a little bit after. And then another cool thing was we had a full page photo in Rolling Stone where they put us in. It was pretty sick. They put us in like leather jackets and did our hair up all like rock star style. Like, those are the two cool things that I did. A lot of the other stuff, I think, it wasn't like... So
Wheaties box wasn't top of your list?
No, we did a cornflakes box, but it was a photo of us. I have it in my living room. It's a photo of us in our, like, on the podium, and it just looks pretty weird. Like, it's cool, but they didn't actually sell it in markets. It was like a reward. You could go on the internet and buy it with rewards.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't come with cereal. But, yeah, I mean, I definitely had a bunch of crazy times in New York. I mean, I met some famous people, but the crazy thing was going to like this secret nightclub in like some hipster part of New York. I don't know New York too well anymore, but and I bought a bottle of vodka for $700. I'm with these like NFL players who have Super Bowl rings. I don't know anything about football, but I'm with all these big dogs. They're buying bottles, and I'm so fucked up already. I decided to buy a bottle.
Are you wearing your medal?
It was in my pocket, but because we carried them everywhere. But I just remember sitting in this like library, like underground club with all these big dogs, and I just felt like I needed to big dog out with them. Got a bottle of vodka and didn't even touch it because I was so drunk, and then left. And I've never bought a bottle since because it was $700 for a bottle of like Sky vodka or something. But the one thing that kind of sucked the most is when I'd be in New York and hanging out with other girls and people my age, it almost worked against me, my image and like my accomplishments, because little do these girls know I wasn't having any luck trying to get like hang out with other girls and have good fun. It all turned into, oh, you probably just do this with a new girl every night, where they think I'm a player, but really I'm struggling like no other, because now it's working in the opposite direction, where I have no shot now because people are like scared because they think I'm this player when I'm not.
So you just missed every shot. Yeah,
every shot got fucked.
Awesome. Just try.
Can't win.
It was honestly, I could not get over it. There'd be nights where I'd get back to the hotel room and I'd talk to Jersey and I'd be like, I don't fucking get it. What else do I need to do? Like, it's just not working. People think I'm just a player, and then. The worst thing, though, like, so that was all that. But what I didn't notice is other athletes who I found very interesting and attractive a year or two later, I noticed were sliding into my DMs that year, and I just totally missed them. Like amazing opportunities to meet some amazing women and like do some cool stuff. I just blew off because I didn't see it. And then now it's too late.